Hello everyone, my name is TheMrMunch, and today I'm going to be going over my series against Wam in the King of the Rockies, the first North American LAN event for Age of Empires 4 that happened this past weekend. Just thought I'd kind of go through our series, talk a little bit about the games and sort of some of the decision-making processes, and also kind of just talk about some of the major differences between a Conqueror 3 player like myself and one of the best in the world, uh, like Wham. So kind of just discuss the games, and yeah. So if you're not familiar at all with how kind of competitive Age of Empires works from a tournament standpoint, generally there's a tournament map pool. For this event, there were 9 maps in the map pool that we could choose from, and the very first thing you do to start off a series is you draft maps. Wham and I started our draft, and the way this was set up actually is that you are allowed to ban maps first before anyone gets to pick anything. So you each get 1 ban before picking a map. You can kind of see the layout up here, but uh, Wham banned Tempe, while I banned 4 lakes, and then Wham picked Dry Arabia, and then I picked Rockies. If you're not familiar with Rockies, it was a map unique to this tournament, but it was essentially just a version of Coastal Cliffs, which is basically just Dry Arabia but smaller. Only about 2/3 of the map is actually playable. The other 1/3 of it is a mountain range for this map that you can't pass at all. So I picked that because I really love that map. Shout out to Avely and who made it. And yeah, just I wanted to pick it for the theme of the event, so I got a good amount of practice on it. Um, and then after those initial picks, you are allowed to ban 1 map each again. So Wham banned Baltic and I banned Prairie. So the 2 kind of water maps for the event were, at least for this series, taken out, one by each of us. Neither of us, I guess, wanted to play water, which I don't blame them. But yeah, and then the final picks are, again, we each pick 1 map as well, and then the final pick is actually, or the remaining map is actually what ends up being the very first map that you play of the series. So in our case, Cliffside was the last map remaining that hadn't been chosen or banned, so that is what we started off for the series. And so once you draft all your maps, you can after that first game is played, the loser is essentially just allowed to choose any of the available maps that they'd like to play, and that's just how the rest of the series goes. Whoever lost the most recent match gets to choose from the remaining maps, whether it be your opponent's home maps or yours. So it allows you a little bit of flexibility to any of these maps in green after this first one are up for grabs for the loser to choose to play. But after you finish drafting all your maps, then you end up drafting your civilizations for the entire series. So essentially the way this works, each tournament's a little bit different in their format, but for this specific tournament, both players were given 2 bans before anyone was allowed to choose any civilizations. And these were also blind, meaning that at first you weren't actually able to see what your opponent was banning until the reveal after you both selected your bans. So essentially, players, or Wham and I, banned 2 civilizations each. And it's worth noting that this tournament itself was played the day after a very major patch. The tournament started on a Friday, and the patch dropped Thursday afternoon. And that Thursday afternoon, essentially everyone was traveling and had, by the time our Friday games rolled around, no one had any experience on the patch at all. No one knew what was really strong, what was really weak, and how much things had really been shaken up. So that added an extra layer of things to this. But so we each banned our 2 civs, and then you're each picking 1 civ apiece. So Wham first picked Byzantines, and then I picked English. And then you each get 1 more ban. I banned Malian, he banned Ayyubid. And then again, 2 more picks. And you essentially just kind of go back and forth over time. drafting from all the available civilizations here. And so, just looking at the draft overall, um, I was not particularly happy with how things ended up going. Um, I was happy to get English and Chinese kind of as my first picks, but after that, I didn't really like how the draft went. Just from my standpoint, I think Wham got uh, the much better draft overall, but with the new patch, it was kind of hard to tell how things were going to go. Um, but yeah, from a drafting standpoint, I think Wham definitely picked the stronger civs. Um, and he was very smart with the way that he banned things. Wham definitely has a lot more practice kind of doing drafting than I do. Just he plays tournaments way more consistently and definitely knew he had a game plan going in for sure. And I had like, thought about it a good bit, but definitely he definitely outdrafted me, I think, in that regard. But then once you've drafted your maps and civilizations for the series, um, there is a civilization picker uh, draft where essentially you just pick one of your available civilizations to play for the first map without being they get revealed at the same time, so that way you know you don't know what your opponent's picking up until you both chosen. So the very first game that Wham and I played was on Cliffside, and he chose Rus and I chose Chinese. Um, Again, Rus was affected majorly by the patch, so I kind of didn't really know. I'm sure he didn't really know either, how strong or how weak they were going to be and how the bounty changes really affected things. But I'll kind of get into the game real quick and just kind of talk things over. I'm not going to go through every little detail just to make sure this video isn't like crazy long, but um, yeah, this was my first game, Wham and I's both first game of the tournament as a whole. Kind of speeding things up just a little bit. Um, China, at least their early game, was not at all really affected by the patch so much, whereas Rus's early game was affected in that um, you no longer have to kill hunt for bounty, and then Wham actually opted to go for a double hunting cabin start for this game. But yeah, kind of going into the matchup as a whole, I wasn't necessarily sure how I wanted to play things initially. I really just because honestly I had no clue what Rus was going to be doing. Um, I typically, will play like one town center, um, Song Dynasty, Spearman Zuganu, especially on a map like this, and just kind of play food denial. But uh, I well, as things kind of unravel, you'll see that I opted not to do that. But again, I wasn't really sure what Wham was going to be up to on the new Rus. So you'll actually notice, though, I paused it here, but as things start to progress, I actually was scanning the map here. You can see kind of my vision so far of what I've scouted. And originally, I was going to run around this map to reveal the rest of it. But I actually noticed in the Fog of War, I'll check my camera here in a minute, but I actually noticed when I was looking back at Wham's base at one point that he was already pushing these deer towards his town center. If you see on the map, the deer are actually visible through the Fog of War. But I noticed them hopping towards the town center, so I decide that instead of scouting the rest kind of corner of the map, I'll look at my vision really quick and see if you can see. Yeah, I'm watching him push the deer in. So I end up taking my scout and attempting to go and disrupt that because I did not want him to have a deer pack underneath his town center. And so I start killing the deer. And in the meantime, Wham is also actually, oh, he's not there yet. He's headed out now, you can see, to the boar. But yeah, I'm attempting to kind of kill the deer so that way he can't keep pushing them into his town center, and I make a very, very foolish mistake and actually lose my scout doing this. I was canceling my animation to attack a bunch of times, and first game nerves definitely got to me a little bit, so losing that scout was actually, it may not seem like a big deal, but this was actually kind of the start of the end for me. Again, something as minor as losing your scout might not seem like a big deal, but kind of what this does is it forces me to build another scout out of my town center because I really need vision to see what he's going to do. So you'll see, I think in a second, I pretty much, yeah, I requeue it instantly. So now I lose out on a villager. But more importantly, what you'll see here in a moment is that I actually end up putting my Barbican in a place that is not very optimal. In hindsight, this is super obvious that this is like a massive mistake, and this was basically a game-losing mistake right off the bat. But I made this scout, and I put my Barbican here because I wanted to kind of secure my base, but partially because I had no clue what Wam was doing. Now that my scout was dead, I had no clue if he was, building a stable and, rushing out knights. There were a lot of question marks about what ultimately it was that he was doing, that because I had no scout, I had no information. And if you look at the map, there is an absolutely incredible Barbican spot for me. This is like a ton of food that I desperately needed to secure in order to stand a chance in this game. And because I didn't have a scout, I was really concerned that if I built it kind of far enough away from my base, that there was a chance he would get a knight out in time to essentially deny it. And yeah, so that was essentially that was the reason why I put the Barbican here, which effectively guards my gold and wood, but realistically it doesn't do a whole lot for me. And that was kind of, you'll see that comes to be a big problem for me later in the game. So kind of fast forwarding a little bit. From a sheep count, I've got a few left. Wam's also got quite a bit more and also more left. He is pushing some of his deer into his town center, and this is actually huge. Him gathering the boar here is just, not only does it give him a ton of bounty with the new system, but this gives you insane gather rate. You can see he's like, if you saw that for a minute, he was at 730 or up to 900 food per minute, while I'm gathering 300 food per minute. Given I don't have as many villagers on food as he does, but he is very much rushing up to castle here. And yeah, just him having the boar and me not punishing it in any way is like really bad. Even if I sent like a horseman or two over there, it would have been really helpful. Even if he had wood for a wooden fortress or something, it's just denying that is huge. But yeah, that ends up being a big deal as the game progresses. And I noticed with my scout that he is not making any units or doing anything, so I was quite certain that he was going to go fast castle. And instead of making units in feudal myself and attempting to pressure him and deny food on the map or just apply pressure where I could, I opt to try and fast castle myself to kind of match him, because I was worried about the armored units that might come out. And instead of massing feudal units to try and fight him, I opted to go castle myself, which looking back was definitely not the right choice, although I was in kind of a bind already. But the reason that was not a good choice is because if you look, I am very, very close to running out of food in my base. I've got a few sheep left, and then I've got this berry pack, but ultimately very soon I will need to move out and grab food. You can see Wam has a scout out here because he is checking it, to see when I move out. He's also on his way to castle now, while I am nowhere close. Even though I'm up villagers because of Song Dynasty, I'm nowhere close. So I end up making an archer range because I was just being indecisive about whether or not I wanted to make units in feudal or wait till castle. But another reason was because I knew I had to secure this food, and I wanted to make sure I had some units maybe as I pushed out. You'll see that I eventually do move out towards the boar. You can see I grab a bunch of villagers out because the goal is to try and secure this. He's actually spreading my deer out to make things less efficient, which is really good on his part. But I go for the boar myself, and I actually was intentionally mining or gathering a bunch of wood because I wanted to throw 2 towers down on the boar just to try and secure it as much as I could. So I grabbed the boar, and I knew that he was headed to castle. I had scouted it, so I knew that very soon I was going to be in some trouble. So am doing my best now, essentially, to try and catch up to him. Um, he immediately starts pumping out knights, and he's actually headed to my gold to deny it, and I kind of suspected that that was going to be the case, so I threw up a tower preemptively, and then also built a few more units just to kind of like, you know, have enough units to block off his knights while also get to castle myself. Um, Again, he's just taking free food on the map, which is really bad for me to just be allowing in any way without him getting punished. Um, this is one of those things that like uh, he knows that he can do this because I have a very immobile army, and he's also got units kind of around patrolling, so that way if I ever move out, he knows it. So he's just getting ahead in the fact that he is gathering much more efficient gathering on the map than I am. I do have the boar, but in general, he's been gathering there from longer, and now there was quite a bit of walking time to get everything built up on my side over here. I finally make it to castle myself a few minutes later, but I am still not in a good spot by any means. I am low on food still. I am floating a ton of gold at the moment, and I have kind of secured this area a little bit, but now Wham basically just needs to hold this position here and pressure me off, and I'll just essentially starve out and lose. So he grabs a quick villager pick there while I was focused elsewhere, because he's attacking me from two sides. He's pressuring my gold as well as my food, and yeah, this is just not good for me, right? Like all of my more or less all of my food idle is eco. Sorry, idle. All of my food eco is idle, and yeah, these knights are just essentially getting tickled by the towers. He basically probably could have just sat under here for as long as he wanted, but he instead opts to again push into my berry villagers. He's just picking off units as well, keeping me idle, and he keeps also poking my villagers. You can see on my gold mine, he's attacking from multiple spots at once. I spot him trying to go for relics, but again, there's really nothing at this point that I can do. I'm not macroing very well. I'm essentially just out of food, and Wham knows it, so he's again just continuing to pressure these food sources, and definitely like in your games, this is what you should be doing as well. Food, especially early, is incredibly important, so you should be pressuring your opponent's early food sources to deny them from being able to build up units, and eventually you'll just have a stronger army mass. Again, I've kind of secured this. I accidentally sent all my villagers to garrison. But yeah, he just keeps, even if he's not killing villagers, which he has killed 2 here, he is denying so much food per minute of gathering. Very cheekily, I cut off his wall because I noticed he was walling off the side of this map. This really had no effect on anything. I just basically was doing it because I could. But yeah, you can see he's now ahead in workers by a considerable amount because he has dropped. I think he dropped a second town center. If he hasn't, he will be shortly. But he also is gathering relics, and yeah, he's just again continuing to pressure this food. I have a little bit of an army now, but honestly, these feudal Zuganu and whatnot are doing nothing to his units because I actually don't even have ranged upgrades at all. I try to drop another tower because I'm desperately trying to secure this position. He's got knights that ran through my base because the Barbican doesn't really protect that much anymore at this point. And again, he's just starving me out slowly over time. I send all my villagers over to the deer because I'm completely out of food in my base. And yeah, so he can just, pressure this position. He's ahead infinitely at this point. And then I end up just tapping out because I am very much dead at this point. So again, this all kind of stemmed very early from when I lost my scout, and then ended up placing a Barbican in kind of a useless spot that wasn't able to protect any food, and then Wham crushed me after that. So second map we played was Dry Arabia. This was my choice. Even though he had drafted this map, I picked it myself because honestly, everyone at this point more or less knows Dry Arabia. It's the most popular map, and the matchup was English versus French. And going into things, I wasn't exactly sure how I wanted to play things. The meta right now is to go 2TC uh, Abbey of Kings for English, um, but French isn't really seen as much, and so I thought maybe I could play 1TC standard longbow spearman, but opt to do something different than both of the strategies I just mentioned, because I don't know, I wanted to try something different, something that I had never practiced before. So this game here, I'm going to speed things up a little bit, kind of just through the early scouting, as we both head out onto the map. Again, I've already talked about the matchup a little bit. Everything is very standard from both of us so far. You'll notice that he actually has a forward gold, and if I were thinking at the time a little bit more proactively, I would have like considered this way more in what I end up deciding to do. For French, their knights are a vital part of their military, and if I could have denied his forward gold, that would have been a big deal in hindsight. He does have a back gold if he ends up needing to relocate, but that like distance changes everything. That like sets him back a lot if he's got to migrate all the way, and then also he's no longer safe back there. So I try something different this game because I was curious and wanted to try going for a 2-town center Council Hall as opposed to Abbey of Kings. Kind of my thought process at the time was just that, like, with French Knights, I didn't really think that I would be able to do much with the Abbey of Kings, and I kind of thought maybe I would kind of do feudal pressure, or like go 2TC, but then go spear longbow and try and pressure him instead of rushing fast castle. So again, I'd never practiced going 2TC Council Hall. In retrospect, it was not a good idea. The king is definitely just way better for causing early pressure and just keeping Wam honest with his own knights and kind of him away from me and my base. And so I'm checking his gold here because I'm curious if he's going to go for a town center himself. I do notice that he is headed to his stone, so I'm like, okay, I know he's going for a second town center. He's at least matching me. Over time, he will build up more villagers, but I know I don't have to worry too much about kind of early knights too much, right? He's not like getting ready to all in me yet. So trailing his knight, I don't know if he even knows this. You can see his knight's vision is significantly smaller than my scout. I'm sure he probably suspected that I was trailing his knight if I didn't, like, if it wasn't visible to him. But either way, I'm trailing him along just to figure out where he's gonna try and attack from early. And you'll notice he actually only gathered like enough gold more or less for that one early night before he transitioned to his town center. So and I knew that. I scouted it and could check. So my goal at this point was to drop the town center on my gold to try and secure it. I also noticed that, like, my wood lines are both forward, which is really not a good spot for English. That's very dangerous. Just like French having forward gold sucks, English having forward wood lines also sucks. So I really wanted to place my town center here, but with him having a knight here, that like makes things dangerous for sure, because knights can very quickly kill villagers, and you can see my TC range is just out of reach where I wanted to put my town center. So I do opt to drop it there anyways. Surprisingly, he actually didn't. I thought he was gonna try and pressure me, and where I decided to build it. So I'm like power building it with 16 villagers because I'm trying to get it up as fast as possible. I'm also keeping my scout on my villagers. One, just to be careful where his knight is, and two, because if he tries to do a charge on my villagers, I will try and body block it with my scout, so that way they don't take that extra damage. You can see he notices now, because his scout comes back, that I'm building my town center here, and you'll see something pretty neat that he does. I was trying to block his charge, but what he did there, basically, charge doesn't go off if you click on a unit and you're right next to it, charge will not go off. Right, there has to be some like distance between the units. So if you if you notice what he did, he charged a villager that was right here, even though he's standing next to it. But he actually right-clicked on one of my villagers over here to trigger the charge on that villager, and then you can see he ended up auto-attacking a few of them. But that was a really cool play. That like I don't know if casters or anyone, that's not something that you necessarily pick up on in the moment unless you're pretty experienced. But he yeah, charges my villager. He actually like got right past my scout and did it. So he ends up killing a villager in the process. I kind of fumbled the garrison in the moment because I was panicked a little bit, but I know his knight is here now and whatnot. But realistically, he can't do a whole lot of damage with my town center there now. So I sent my scout back to his side of the map because I need to figure out if he is all-inning me, or if he's doing feudal aggro, or if he is going to go to castle himself. Because I didn't really know ultimately what I wanted to do yet, so I needed to figure it out. So you'll see I'm sending my scout actually back to his side of the map. Sorry, I'm fumbling my observing here. But I am sending my scout back to his side of the map because I need to figure out what he is doing. He's dropping his town center on his deer, rightfully so, because there's no aggression that I'm, sending his way, so he can safely secure this deer pack with that town center. So I'm kind of watching his base to try and understand what he's doing, or what his plan is. I immediately scout that he's dropping another stable. And so that kind of tells me that he is probably looking for some feudal pressure. I actually didn't walk up and scout his archery range, not for a little bit at least, but I knew there was a second stable coming, so that tells me quite a bit. So back home I drop a barracks because I'm looking to secure things here. But if you notice, in this game I did not get very many sheep, and that was really problematic. I'm basically out at this point of food in my base, and I really don't have a whole lot going for me at this point. I'm trying to do a farm transition, but like double producing on town centers with almost no sheep left, also trying to get spearmen out knowing that Wham is coming with feudal pressure. I'm just not in a good spot already. If I look, he's also a few villagers ahead, even though I build my town center first. But again, yeah, I didn't even scout his archery range at this point yet. Again, I was so paranoid kind of about the knights. He's kind of circling my base. And even though I have a wall here, or what I thought was a wall, he can still pop in pretty easily if he feels like it, this little wall. But you'll actually notice, I don't find this out till later, that this is actually there's just a hole here. You can't necessarily tell from like the way that I was playing, or at least like it wasn't immediately obvious to me. But yeah, there's just a hole here, and he will utilize that later. But anyways, yeah, he is moving out now. I scout the archer, headed to my base, so I start making units myself. I try and make a wall here just to kind of block off his ability to attack me. I knew that his knight was kind of hanging around out here, so I wasn't too worried about knights running up the middle. Again, I'm staying relatively active with my scout, tracking his army across the map. But yeah, now we're kind of both building up in kind of a feudal. I'm desperately trying to get farms going, and yeah, because I desperately need food. He's kind of just building up outside my base, and you'll see he runs through that massive hole and picks off a few villagers. I'm scrambling to get villagers in the town center because this is just only 8 can fit, right? But yeah, these knights are just laughing at the damage. He's now getting +1 ranged defense himself. Again, now I'm again scouting because I'm really trying to figure out if he plans to go castle or if he's just gonna feudal all in me. But now he's got a knight trailing my scout, so that becomes a little bit more difficult to gain information when that's getting attacked, and also like trying to defend at home. I do note again, or later as I'm running away, that he is on his own as other deer pack as well. So he's just gathering so much free and efficient food on the map, while I am stuck inside my base, desperately trying to transition farms. You can see the eco difference is just like this game is so like already over. Again, I don't know. This already chopped through. pretty unfortunate, but this is an example of like two forward wood lines really just uh, puts you in a tough spot from the get-go. So he is just slowly whittling me down, while also, if you look at his resources, he's headed towards castle. Um, I'm trying to defend, but like realistically, again, I'm in a very, very tough spot. Um, so looking at his base, he's making just enough units to keep pressure on me. And now at this point, my scout is back home, so I really don't know what he's doing. Um, and yeah, he is. We trade 1 for 1 here, I think. I think I end up killing a knight. Yeah, I get a knight. He gets a spearman. Good trade, but again, he's on his way to castle and still has plenty of food. I am trying to secure my villagers at home. I see he's castle, and I already know that this is not a good spot for me. He managed to find a few villagers on gold. And again, my wood lines are exposed, and yeah, so my goal now is basically just to try and mess up as many units as possible and hope that I can stall out until I have a sustained farming eco and then get to castle. But realistically, this game has been over for minutes now. He's just so far ahead from an economic standpoint and military standpoint here shortly. His units are just going to be super strong. Funnily enough, he actually, him and I talked after the game. He was trying to go find his boar. Which he's running his 8 villagers now because they finished up on the deer. He was trying to find a boar, which he had not scouted. You can see there's one here and one here, but he didn't actually scout it. So yeah, I'm trying to secure my base as much as possible, walling off where he could attack with charge. I have units kind of in both spots, knowing that he's going to be looking for my wood line as well as my gold. But again, I am sort of headed towards castle, but like from a macro standpoint, I'm trying to get there, but I'm just not in a good spot. He's doing such a good job with his archers, just poking my forward wood line. And yeah, he's starting to secure his side of the map as well. But yeah, I don't know what I don't know what happened here, but just kind of casually donating some villagers. Again, when things are kind of happening all over the place, yeah, mistakes like that happen. But I was in such a bind that I really had no clue what to do. I mean, I did want to go for a white tower to try and secure my base, but the way I had laid things out really just did not lend to a good white tower spot. In hindsight, I really desperately need to secure these wood lines. The TC kind of covers the gold, so I desperately need to, get wood lines, and maybe I could secure this gold. But there's just no way I can drop a white tower in the front of my base and not die, or lose all my villagers doing it. So I opt to throw it in the back of my base, hoping to protect some farms. But again, this is just maybe I could have thrown it here if I had thought a little bit more proactively during the game. But this is just there's just no space at this point. So I desperately tried to throw the white tower up on my farms, hoping I can just stall and my farming eco will out-sustain. Again, he can't poke my villagers here with knights, but he's running around it with little groups. He's got some knights up here. Again, he's controlling really well. I'm just really trying to get my age up in. He gets some charges on the farms. Takes me a second to notice. He's also attacking here. And I get the age up in, but realistically it doesn't really do a whole lot. He hasn't killed me yet, but now that my white tower is in the middle of nowhere, pretty much my whole base is just in shambles. He does have only ranged 1 arrow defense, but his knights just don't take that much damage, and all this idle time is just killing me. He's killing villagers everywhere. My units I can't upgrade, even though I'm castle, so tap out. And yeah, Wam again, the strategy I had from the beginning really wasn't a good one, but Wam just absolutely is showcasing how to punish, the spawn that I had, and then also just my poor decision making. And his multitasking was just way better in that scenario for sure. So last game, was on Rockies, and yeah, I chose this map again because I was the loser of the last game, and honestly, I didn't really like most of the civs I had left um, in my draft, right? So English is out, China's out, Bruce is out, French is out. Um, I mean, it's kind of a no, I don't say no-brainer, but like him going Byzantines here isn't a huge surprise, but I really didn't know what I wanted to do against something like that. Delhi also was pretty good on that map, but either way, I wasn't necessarily expecting that. Um, and of my remaining choices, it was, yeah, I didn't have many left that I was really confident on. Um, I decided to go with Order of the Dragon because for fun, up until the tournament, like the last week, I'd been practicing some Order of the Dragon, uh, but ended up, yeah, picking that into Byzantine on Rockies. So getting to our final game here. Um, and my game plan was to kind of play it like you do feudal aggression HRE, where you throw a knock-in on the wood line and then slowly build up farms that are very powerful under the knock-in chapel. I hadn't played this specific matchup much at all, um, so I was not really familiar with how things actually would play out. I opt to go for a 2-farm start, actually, just because I wanted to get that farming transition early, and it's actually really easy with Order of the Dragon. I don't know if it's the best strategy, but you can just have these villagers mine one trip, and then you have enough wood for 2 farms, your farm, and a mining camp. So early scouting. Oh, actually, really quick, I'll just show you the map. So this is Rockies. If you've never seen it before. 1/3 of the map is just completely impassable cliffs. Um, so with some rivers and whatnot, just kind of matching the aesthetic of the Rockies. But so it basically is kind of a smaller dry Arabia then. So you'll see I actually make a crucial error early in that our scouts saw each other, and I end up circling back on my side into the mountain, and which was not a good idea. I literally just could have kept going straight and scouted the other portion of the map, but I end up scouting behind my base and following his scout, and you'll see that that is a problem later on in that I basically got like no sheep. I had dropped a few off back at home, but I'm literally trailing a scout. I don't know it, but or maybe I saw it there, so I would desperately try to cut across the map because I know he's headed up this way essentially. So I'm desperately trying to cut across the map, the remaining part of the map that hasn't been scouted, to see if I can pick up any of the sheep left. But these are kind of, yeah, those early mini games that go on in Age of Empires, especially from a high level, where like that scouting is like, you know, having a good scouting pattern and not trailing your opponent's scout is a big deal. Like starting down several sheep is just a huge disadvantage, especially from like Order of the Dragon and whatnot. So I throw my Akin on the wood line. Wam opts to go for the Grand Winery. Not really a shock there. Very strong landmark. And my plan was to get out some early horsemen to try and deny his resources and whatnot. So I'm scouting here. I noticed that he's going for a mercenary house, and I also noticed that he's got like a ton of villagers on gold. So it's pretty clear that he is, to me, going fast castle. He's able to get a few units out just from the olive oil that he gathers from the berries. He doesn't have to worry about making spearmen or anything else like that necessarily. He scouts my stable immediately, but my stable is actually pretty late here. My build was a little bit off, and so this horseman was actually, I think, comes out like 15 seconds later than it could have, which, you know, isn't game losing, but it changes like the early, you know, stages of the game quite a bit. But he was being annoying with his scout, just burning down my house. I'm again scouting his base, and I'm noticing the fact that he's got a ton of villagers on gold, so it's pretty clear that he is going fast castle. So I see his Keshiks immediately, and ultimately, you know, even Order of the Dragon horsemen don't trade super well into Keshiks, but I do see that he is trailing my scout, and so I end up purposefully running around his Keshiks to because I'm trying to deny his gold, right? You can see I've rallied onto his gold. and he doesn't actually know that my horseman is here. He told me after the game as well that he didn't actually like see my first horseman come out. I'm doing a similar thing with this one too. I know he's headed this way with his Keshiks, but ultimately we bypass each other, um, and that works out in my favor for a bit. He's getting pretty close to castle. He basically already has enough gold for it, but we do a little micro dance here. He pulls out the shivs on me with his cistern accuratory defense, or however you pronounce it. And so we're going kind of doing this back and forth. His villagers have extra damage, but ultimately, like, Order of the Dragon Horsemen are very strong. And again, this caught him off guard, but he's not going to turn back with his Keshiks at this point. So now I've got two horsemen here. While I'm also defending my villagers back at home, I run those away, while also attacking his gold. And again, he has enough gold for castle, but ultimately, if I can deny this, that's helpful for me. He pops out two Keshiks just in time. I think, yeah, so now we're kind of just going back and forth in a few different spots. Horsemen are faster, so this guy gets away with just a little bit of health. He's now trying to tower his gold so that way he can have it secured. I am following his remaining Keshiks on my side of the map, but he then goes for the Cistern of the Hill landmark. This is one that was newly changed in the patch to increase the charges on it. I don't remember exactly the changes that were made to it, but I know there were some buffs to it. So he has to go for a Cistern of the Hill. And if you watch the cast of this game, there's kind of a funny moment that happens. There was a desync that happens, a brand new bug, potentially from the new patch or what. But the actual casters who are casting the game, their observer, for whatever reason, I do some harass on this as he's building it, and there's some sort of interaction that happened where the casters actually never see him finish the landmark. There's like complete desync that happens. And so from the caster's point of view, as they were casting the game, he never finishes the landmark, and they were like going crazy. It was kind of funny. Yeah, I could hear them going, like, a lot of things happening through my headset at the venue. But I was like, I couldn't imagine what they were going crazy for. Like, there was nothing wild in the game happening that needed that much. But they were talking about, and I couldn't hear it, but his landmark, from their perspective, never finished. Thankfully, from a player standpoint, the game had, played out normally, like there was no issue at all. So he hits castle. I am just trying to deny his second deer pack as much as his second berry patch as much as I can, because him getting additional olive oil is bad for me. This is more or less mined out. I don't know why he left one berry patch there, but I'm trying desperately to like poke him from multiple sides, just like back and forth to try and get him off the berries. And you can see I'm also headed towards castle myself. But right now there's a cataphract headed across the map. Yeah, so I'm trying to deny his berries, and he is headed towards my base. And yeah, I have enough for castle here. But again, this is one of those things, like, I could age up, but realistically, like, after that, then what? He's got two cataphracts coming across the base, or coming across the map. He's also got Varangian guards headed my way now, and this game is just very over. Like, I can go Regnits, but there's pretty much no way I get relics at this point. He's got cataphracts at my base, and even though I'm kind of like poking him around the map, trying my best to be annoying and like getting him, attacking him from multiple sides, realistic, I just can't do the damage. All my farms are now idle. I kind of aged up just for the sake of it, just because because I could, and then tap out, because I was realistically I was dead. Maybe I could have fought it out for a few more minutes, but like at that point I was pretty much dead. So Wham took it home 3-0. Nothing too surprising there. I wasn't really happy with how I played in this series, to be completely frank. But I mean, Wham is also just absolutely a better player, one of the best in the world. So I think he outdrafted me, and then like I just, from a decision-making standpoint, made a lot of errors that I, went over as I talked about the games. Hopefully I didn't ramble too much, and that was entertaining. But yeah, I am also going to be going over my series against Nyan Racing Cat in a separate video. But just wanted to, talk through the games a bit, um, and some of the decision-making progress or process, and kind of some of the things that separate a Conqueror 3 player from one of the best in the world. So thank you for tuning in. See you on the next one.